Welcome to Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, the podcast that gives you an unfiltered behind-the-scenes look at what it's really like being a woman in the middle who's over 50 and following her entrepreneurial dreams. Grab a superhero cape, girlfriend, because you deserve one. I'm your host, Master Certified Life Coach and Midlife Mentor, Suzy Rosenstein, and I am excited to inspire you with interviews that feature all of this midlife amazingness. Let's go. Hey there, welcome back to the show. We have another really exciting interview ahead of us today about being in business since 2001 and continuing to pivot and evolve to rise up to current opportunities. I love that. Such longevity. Today, you're going to be meeting Nancy Juetten, a woman in the middle entrepreneur who empowers top performers and their assistants to book themselves on the right podcasts without hiring an expensive booking agency. Welcome to the show, Nancy. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
I was really excited to have you on. Just another chance to talk about podcasts with an expert. I know we're going to have a great conversation about your midlife entrepreneur story. We're going to be talking about your business and what's going really well, and also what midlife issues might be getting in your way to some degree, a little here, a little there, and maybe challenging for you in your life as well as being a business owner. So let's get started with how old you are, how long you've been an entrepreneur. I guess we talked about that. But really more about your entrepreneurial journey. And then, of course, talk to us about exactly what you do in the world. So take it away.
All right. Well, I am 61 years young. I've been in business since 2001. The inspiration to start my business was motherhood. There's something about bringing home that baby in the basket that causes you to change your priorities and do things differently, and doing the daycare shuffle and living a life of quiet desperation, I knew was not going to be my path in life. And I thought I want to raise my kid and know my kid. So I hung out my shingle as a marketing communications expert and a publicist, and found a way to create a life for our family where I could be at home with him and also do great work for clients. And I never really looked back.
Wow. And was that a scary decision for you at that point?
Yeah, sure it was. But I guess I had to take the leap, because I think you get to a point, there's something about when you become a mom, your priorities change very dramatically, and you know what you will accept or tolerate, and you know that what you won't, and your priorities become crystal clear. Yeah. And I thought, I've got to do this on my own terms. And so when you work for someone else and you say, well, I have to go to the doctor, or I've got to take the kid to the pediatrician, the supervisor, whoever it is, has whatever point of view he might have about that. But when you own your own business, you simply say, well, I have availability on Tuesdays and Thursdays within these windows of times. Which one of those will work best for you? And I never had to explain or apologize what it was that I was doing and why it mattered to me. I was totally there for my clients, but I set really clear boundaries around when I could meet and when I couldn't. And that was really how it all started.
That's so great. What kind of work were you doing before that?
I was the director of marketing for Taco Time Restaurants, which is a multi-unit quick service restaurant chain. And I wrote and produced all their television commercials and radio commercials and managed their $1 million ad budget. And I wrote the I Love Taco Time song, which in the Pacific Northwest is something that folks in our vintage will gladly sing back to you. And so I did that for about 3 years, had a really great time.
That sounds fun. Is that something you studied in school as well that put you on that trajectory with marketing?
I have a degree in marketing, business administration, marketing specialty. I've always been brilliant with words, turning a phrase, finding a unusual spin on how to say or do or be something. And that just sort of set me up to do that kind of work and really enjoy it and be pretty good at it.
Oh my gosh. I'm not familiar with that taco song. And I'm not going to ask you to sing it, although I want to.
I can. If it's
Oh, you can? Oh, I would love that.
This is the kid version. I love taco time. I love taco time. Fresh, great tastes and fun. Crisp burritos, Mexi fries, hop, skip, jump, or run. Cheese quesadilla, tacos too. So many cheeses to make. Way cool toys and the children's meal. Complete your meal today.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for doing that. And as a listener, you didn't see what was going on Zoom, but we were both bopping our heads back and forth and getting into it. Oh, I love that. Jingles and songs just aren't popular today like they used to be. And I remember having a night once with the kids at the cottage, and something came up, and it was that Mikey reference that we all grew up knowing. Let's get Mikey. He'll eat anything, that sort of thing. And they, of course, didn't know what I was talking about. So I looked it up on YouTube, and it just started this whole conversation about the way we grew up and how it was so common to be so focused on commercials because there was no fast forward. We had to watch them, and we watched them and we sucked it all in, and we know all these jingles. And it was kind of a fun part of our culture. I mean, not the grocery shopping.
Okay, so since you brought that up, this is a really good little snippet here. I was a TV kid. My dad was an actor in Hollywood. The TV was always on. And one of the commercials that I remember so vividly was the one about how many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Pop?
Yes.
So I'm like 9 years old, and I decided to figure it out. And then I wrote a letter to the president of the Tootsie Pop Corporation and told him my answer. And I wrote this letter and put it in a mailbox with this high expectation. And then a few weeks later in the mail, it was this gilded certificate, and it said, very few people on earth know how many licks it takes to get to the center. And this certificate belongs to one of the few who do. But here was the thing that was so important about that in terms of setting me on a trajectory for my life. My dad was an actor in Hollywood. He was very self-centered. We all faded into the wallpaper to give him the spotlight. And me writing a letter to the president of an important company and getting an answer back might have been the very first time in my life that I really felt important. And so it was really one of those seminal moments where I thought, I'm supposed to use a pen and words to make other people feel important. And that was really the inspiration for me writing my first book, Bye Bye Boring Bio, and really helping me to be really brilliant at being a publicist for other people, because it's all about making other people feel seen, heard, celebrated. And I grew up in a household where I was not. So from that deep wound came a great gift that became a great blessing to a great many clients. And so that commercial was really a seminal moment for me.
Nancy, I can't even believe that we wouldn't have talked about that. That wasn't part of your notes. That is such, oh my gosh, that story is something else. Thank you so much for sharing that, for singing the song, and for leaning into your genius and being aware enough to see where some of these insights and confidences and like gut instinct, where it comes from. For you to recognize what happened in that moment and to apply it to your life is another level of skill. A lot of people would have just been happy to put the certificate up, grab another Tootsie Pop, and be on your way. Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Well, shucks.
Well, seriously, applying stuff to your own life is a whole, just think about podcasts. We're going to be talking more about podcasts. It's one of your zones of geniuses is to connect people with podcast opportunities. And, a lot of people are addicted to podcasts. I call them a party in your purse because, I was a late adopter to smartphone. And even when I had one, I had no clue about podcasts. Somebody had to teach me, oh, that's what that app means. Okay. It is such an entree to so much fun. And however you like listening, whatever you like listening to or learning about, there's something there for you. And just for you to, take something you're hearing on a podcast is one thing, but to apply it to your life is another. And I hear that from so many people. We love podcasts when we're driving, when we're putting on makeup, when we're cutting up vegetables, whatever you do, walking the dog when you like to listen to a podcast. But to take the extra step and somehow make it part of your life so that you can learn from it from doing in some way or from changing the way you think or whatever, it's another skill set. It really is.
Well, here's the thing. As I've mentioned, I've been a publicist all my life and had the best training on earth growing up in the shadow of someone with a very big personality. So regardless of whatever education and training I've received in the trenches, nothing prepared me better than to live with the person I grew up with to become a great advocate and champion for other people. So in 2020, the pandemic came to call. And if you were a speaker, a trainer, an expert who was depending on being in live events and stages to deliver your message, well, you found yourself wringing your hands because there was nothing to do. We were all stuck in our houses. So I'm thinking to myself, as a publicist, what could I do to broadcast my own brilliance without leaving my house? And I doubled down on podcast guesting so that I could be seen, heard, and celebrated and ultimately compensated for what it is that I do. And I got to be so masterful at it that I created a system to teach other people how to do it. And so since the pandemic came to call, I've empowered thousands of people to book themselves on top podcasts without hiring an expensive booking agency. And it was like looking for opportunity in challenge. So while other people were wringing their hands, I was rolling up my sleeves and saying, how can I serve? And that's what I did. And it was a timely opportunity to pivot again beyond, before being a publicist, a whole variety of arenas, but I just sort of narrowed my focus to podcast guesting, and voila, managed to create a revenue rush for my products, programs, and services at a perfect time.
Really, the pandemic was the perfect time for podcasts to explode. I mean, I remember right at the beginning, I had already been doing podcasting, and I never imagined in my 50s, somewhere, I guess I was in my early 50s when I had the nerve to start this. I never imagined in a million years I'd be doing anything like this, so techie and so out there. And I had no idea. But again, like your past, when I look back at my past, it makes perfect sense. And I've always been very interested in interviewing people and looking for patterns and asking great questions. I mean, my master's degree focused on qualitative methodology, long form interviews, like it's all there. And I've been fascinated with sound. I had a tape recorder when I was in third grade. That was my gift. Now, of course, I was recording farts at the time, but it was very exciting. And then I'm very proud of having a gramophone in the house. That was my father's, and we got it repaired and everything. Anyway, blah, blah, blah.
So you've been gathering the breadcrumbs and creating a beautiful cake too. Love
absolutely, that. Absolutely. And I know some of the stories seem weird when you put them together, but it does have a lot in common with yours in terms of just piecing things together. And of course, our path usually makes perfect sense as we go forward. But I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, I was already set up. I'd already figured out how to get a decent mic, and I figured out some of the most basic settings and just how to get more comfortable in Zoom. Because quite frankly, when you're on Zoom interviewing people, and running my coaching programs and the groups and this and that, I've never looked at myself more in my life. It was very uncomfortable to look at yourself that often when you're not used to it. And that's how I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, everybody was talking about washing your hands and not touching your face. And I realized what many of us realized is, oh my God, I touch my face a lot. I had no idea. But when you're watching yourself on Zoom, it's easier to see. But you're right. It makes perfect sense that going online in a variety of different ways, it was perfect timing in the pandemic as people were struggling. But most people do not realize what an amazing opportunity it is to get on podcasts who, that are pretty popular. It's an opportunity that they may not have in any other part of their lives.
Well, you're right. And when people get the light bulb that goes on, they realize that when you get involved in a long form conversation like what we're having here today, you really get a sense for who the people are that are speaking. And if you're drawn to them, and if when they share their background and experience, if that's what you've been looking for, and if you feel like the fit is right when the show is over, a lot of magic happens in the green room. Sometimes hosts and guests end up doing business together. Sometimes they end up referring guests to each other's shows. Sometimes listeners out there find a way back to either side and say, hey, let's do business. And if you can do more business by being yourself fully, your enrollment conversations are sure a lot shorter. And that's a blessing too.
That is so true. Absolutely. And that's why one of the things that I've been really enjoying are the referrals that my guests on this podcast are making. It's super, super fun. And, so far people have been having a very positive experience, and that's helping too. So I'm loving this opportunity. So tell me what it's like for you to coach somebody who's very new to podcasts and really don't appreciate the opportunity.
When you outline that there's 2.7 million podcasts out there and 400,000 of them that are actively producing and receiving guests, you realize that there's probably a whole slew of podcast opportunities where you, the royal you, could speak your truth, share your story, offer your unique perspective, and lasso those listeners back into your own ecosystem. And when you realize that it's just as easy as that, it's like, why would you not do it? I think the most compelling thing that I have discovered personally is when I am speaking to the right audience and having the right conversation, leads flow my way just by being the best Nancy I know how to be. And I remember one time I was on a podcast. It was very small podcast for people marketing a book and a speech. And I wasn't expecting this, but the host said, Nancy, I know you have a lot to say, so please take the talking stick and speak off the cuff for 15 minutes to the 27 people who are here today about podcast guesting and why they should consider it as their number one visibility strategy. And I said, holy cow, okay, let's rock and roll, bend and sway, bob and weave. I'm going to do an extemporaneous 15-minute talk. And as a direct result of that 15 minutes of value, 4 people enrolled in my program instantaneously. Now, that's probably a better result than what typically happens. But if only one person heard that show and reached out to you, and you have a 4-figure offer that's already selling to your ideal client, how many more 4-figure or greater offers could you close when people come to you pre-sold because they heard you on a podcast and they want to do more business with you? And it's very intoxicating, the upside that you have when you become a brilliant guest.
Yeah, it's really true. And it's something like anything you can get better and better at.
Well, here's something I want to tip my hat to you, which is your application to become a guest is so thoughtful and strategic. And you are making referrals, asking for referrals, a systematic part of your business model. And having listened to your show and read your story and appreciated the journey that you're traveling, when I was filling out the names of people that could be a good guest, I thought, who could be a good guest who qualifies for this? And I knew that the person I referred you to would be perfect. And what do you know? You spoke to her earlier this morning. I think that to the extent that we all can be better referral partners for each other and to make that referral ask systematic in our business, the better off we're all going to be.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. And it's been amazing. Like, how else can you know so many amazing people? Obviously, you need connections. And I don't get out that much. I mean, some people love to travel. It's not part of my business in a major way. And so I love still having the opportunity to meet and connect with people from around the world. And referrals are a huge part of that. So, thank you so much for appreciating that. I'm thrilled.
Very smart and strategic. Very strategic. And I know you spoke to the person to whom you referred you earlier today, and we both agree that she's fire. So
totally. Oh my God. In fact, she was right before this interview. Super, super fun. Okay. So as you know, on this podcast, I am fascinated by this intersection of being a midlife woman, having midlife stuff come up, and the way that it can really be challenging in your life and or business to deal with the stuff that's coming up. And yet women do all the time. So in your notes, you talked about the big D's. And I have to say, I haven't heard it referred to that way, but because you're such a wordsmith, it's amazing the way you've pulled that together. So can you tell us a little bit about what the big D's are and how they've played a part in your life, testing your resilience?
Well. The big D's: disease, disability, divorce of someone close to you, a diagnosis, death, dementia. Every single one of them was like a black cat that crossed my path in the last several years. And I got to tell you, it's derailing as long as we're having fun with D's.
Oh, yeah.
You could be cruising along doing your thing, and your mother gets diagnosed with dementia, and your best friend and someone very close to you announce a divorce after 30 some odd years of marriage. And your husband has a mini stroke and almost loses his life. And Like, I'm not going to tell you that it was like business as usual for me when those things happened. It was derailing. And so there was a time there where I had to step away from my business and just center myself to cope with. I mean, the love of my life. I've been married for 36 years to the love of my life. And one day I go up to see him upstairs to kiss him goodnight. He's holding on to the breakfast bar or the counter in the bathroom. He can hardly lift his arm. And he says, I think I need to go to the hospital. I'm having a stroke. We just moved to a new town, didn't know anybody. I didn't even know where the hospital was. I get in the car. I ask GPS, where's the nearest hospital? And I drive him to the hospital. Life is hanging in the balance. It's like, oh my God, like,
wow, Nancy.
Life just hits the fan. Can we just say? Sometimes life just hits the fan and in the moment, you get strong and you do what you need to do to rise up to the occasion that you have been served. And then afterwards, I check myself into pity party hotel and get into a nice fetal position and have myself a good long cry because my resilience has been tested and my whole world just shook. And how am I going to get over this? And I'm not going to lie, I took a little while to get over that because he's well now and I'm happy
so
to be able to tell you that. But you don't really know what you've got until you're tested. And boy, I've been tested.
Yeah. So when you needed to take a little break from your business, had you considered that before? Like if something happens, this is how I'm going to handle it with my business, or was it all kind of on the fly?
Well, that's such an interesting question. Hear all this. I don't know if the universe is smiling or winking or wincing at me, but before all this stuff had happened, I had read about someone whose husband passed away and she felt completely disempowered to run the rest of their lives. And I remember saying to my husband, what I really want for Christmas is a blueprint to access everything we have and everything we've accumulated. So if I need to drive this ship, I know what to do. So I created with my husband, who's a certified financial planner, this system called the Life Goes On Roadmap for Personal Financial Empowerment. And I had created that the year before all this stuff happened.
No.
Seriously. And did I also mention that our home was burglarized and everything valuable that we owned was walked out of our house in our cars that they drove away?
Oh my God.
I mean, truth is stranger than fiction. So if there was any silver lining in any of that, one of the elements of the Life Goes On roadmap is a jewelry and valuables inventory. And what you do with your jewelry and valuables inventory is you take a picture of your wedding band and your wedding ring and your beautiful jewelry and your husband's beautiful watch. And you find the receipts for these things and you find the appraisals and you have all of this on a spreadsheet. So while I'm mourning the loss of 2 cars and everything valuable and the violation of my personal home, the gentleman from the insurance company says, well, I'm going to need an inventory of your valuables so we can find some way to make good on all of this unfortunate situation that you find yourself in. And I said, well, that I can do. So I send him this inventory and like a week later, like this huge check arrives because we had our act together before life hit a bump in the road. So I don't know if the universe was smiling or winking or wincing, but I had all that squared away. And when I got derailed, I came back and gave a couple of years of my life to Life Goes On roadmap to give that wings to fly. And that was another pivot in my career because I thought I can stand on the value of, I think, what is the expression? You can, when you turn your wounds into a gift for others, you can like wave the flag for what's good about whatever happened. And so there I was, life hit the fan and I was going to make something good out of it. So I taught thousands and thousands of people, couples, to get their act together before life hit a bump in the road. And then what I realized after doing that for a couple of years is that was a conversation that I didn't want to be in 24/7 because helping people to get ready for the other shoe to drop is really not a conversation people wanted to have. And then it was sort of interesting when the pandemic hit and sadly tens of thousands of lives were lost and people were more concerned about toilet paper and hand sanitizer than being able to manage their lives. And I thought, there is this dog won't hunt. I've got to abandon this and move on to something that I know will fly because I didn't want to be in that conversation anymore.
I love that. You know, knowing when to close something, to stop something, to shift is another really important skill. And because you've been at entrepreneurial stuff for so long, you've had to do that a couple of times. And I love that you, oh, is somebody cute joining us? Or you've got a very cute dog joining us today. I love that. It's okay. A dog kissing you is the best. What's your dog's name?
This is Champ.
Hello, Champ. Champ is so cute. You know, I'm always worried my dog's going to come in because my guy's 130 pounds. He's a Newfoundland.
Oh, and I love big dogs.
He's really big and he's so cute. But when he comes in, he usually wants a treat and he takes his big giant head and he like pokes me. He's a big giant poke. It's so funny. Anyway, no, that kind of a little interruption is amazing. And everybody listening on the podcast loves that sort of thing. So what I was saying is it's a real skill to know when to stop something. And I think that's amazing that you noticed that. Thanks for sharing that. And I'm glad we got a chance to talk about that. But so you were prepared you knew where everything was and you knew the blueprint, but what kind of thought did you give to how you were going to run your business if you personally needed some time out? Was it all parts of your business or parts? How did that work?
Well, maybe the thing to do here is to talk a little bit about what happened last year, because that's really relevant to what you're asking me now. May 27th of 2022, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And it was really confronting because for all the reasons that you would imagine it would be. But what was interesting was the timing, because it was 2 weeks before the largest launch I'd ever staged since the pandemic came to call. And I had 1,250 people signed up for my online masterclass, and I was all set to deliver amazingness for this community. And 2 weeks before I'm supposed to deliver, I get this very upsetting news. And I remember thinking to myself, what am I going to do? And at the time I thought, well, I'm going to compartmentalize this news and I'm going to stand and deliver like a pro, because that's what professionals do. And that's what I did. And I compartmentalized the whole news and didn't make it public the whole time that I was being treated, including surgery and 20 rounds of radiation and all the recovery that's associated with that.
Wow.
And so what I ended up doing is my commitment was to serve my clients at the highest level in this intimate group program that I lead. And the program was running every Wednesday from 9 to 11. So when this happened, I thought, well, every Wednesday I have to be the very best that I can be for these clients, which means that Thursday's surgery day, Friday's recovery day, the weekend I'm going to get better, Monday I'm going to take care of business, Tuesday I'm going to get ready to deliver whatever I'm doing, and Wednesday I'm going to do my thing. I got through 11 weeks of a 12-week program, keeping it a complete secret from my clients that anything was even wrong.
Wow.
And then when I told them, which I felt duty bound to share, they were gobsmacked that I had shown up in service at such a high level and had exceeded their expectations in so many ways that they honored me with this beautiful crystal award, the Star of Excellence, for your exemplary expertise in building a supportive and caring community that rises together. How you do anything is how you do everything.
Wow.
This arrives in the mail. I burst into tears, because how you do anything is how you do everything. It really is awkward, difficult, confronting, upsetting on every level to get a life-altering diagnosis when you're supposed to be running a business. And what you do is you decide what I have to do and what I won't do. And coming out of that, I am no evidence of disease today. I'm happy and grateful for that. But I know what I want to do and I know what I won't do. So being clear about what's cake for me and what's cringe for me, it's never been more clear. And so when I make invitations for people to do business with me, I'm looking for the right people to do business with me, and the wrong people can go someplace else, because I don't have time to waste talking to the wrong people that are steal any ounce of my life force, because this is all the day that I have and I want to make the most of it. So what's interesting about this is that I used to be, I'm a very lovely person, and I used to quip that I had a velvet boot of accountability to keep people in line. But now, post-diagnosis, treatment, and recovery, my velvet boot has a much sharper edge. You better do what you say you're going to do, because why would you not? I mean, what if your life was you, the royal you, your life was crossed by a black cat? You don't have time to waste or make excuses about why you're not going to do A, B, or C. You only get one shot at this. We should do the best we can with it. So I guess it's a long-winded answer of saying, when life hits the fan, whatever D of the D's that we talked about, you have to decide where you stand and what you're going to stand for, and show up in that way everywhere you go. And that's really the way I'm showing up these days.
Oh, that's beautifully said. And it really, those D's really help you, or wake up calls, really, they really do help you get a clear take on your priorities. And with this time sensitivity that we have in midlife, you really do. You don't want to waste time. Time is very valuable and you don't want to waste it. Well, you have shared a lot. It's been really fun, really authentic, really scary. You shared some things. Wow, with the burglary, the way that all happened, and some extra fun stories. And of course, your song. I mean, now I'm hungry for tacos. That's for sure. And tell us, how can people best get in touch with you?
I invite you to go to getknowngetpaid.com/brilliant assistant, so that you can find a brilliant assistant to support you in your podcast guesting efforts, so you could do the parts of it that you love and delegate the other tasks to someone who loves to support you in a world-class way. GetKnownGetPaid.com/brilliant assistant.
Ah, I love that. Nancy, you're amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time today and sharing all of this good stuff. It's been so amazing having this time together.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, that is it for now. If you're listening and loving what you hear, please like and subscribe. Reviews are great too and much appreciated. And if you're a woman in the middle who's 50 or over and an entrepreneur and would also like to come on the show, please go to www.midlifeinterviews.com and fill out an application. We'd love to have you on to share your story. Thanks so much for listening. It's never too late for you to put yourself on your agenda. I'm Suzy Rosenstein, and I'll talk to you again soon. Now, real quick before we say goodbye, if you are connecting with this show, I'd love to invite you to a happiness breakthrough coaching session. It's my laser-focused coaching call that will help you get clear about what's getting in your way as a woman in the middle entrepreneur and confident about your next steps to more happiness in your next chapter. Head over to www.nextchapterbreakthrough.com. Talk to you soon.